3, 2, 1, execute.
Oliver Wallstrom, who's out hurt. Both trying to change it back in and scores! 10 for 23 lifetime in on Sorrows. What a move! Deposits it.
Kachuk with speed, goes back against the grain and scores on the backhand.
A chance to put the Canes in the lead here in the shootout stretch to go. Number he scores! To the blocker's side. Svechnikov with
Turn it up to your speakers.
Welcome back to the Silky Mitts podcast here on Penn State Sports Night. We're back. We wanted to do a conference final preview and also a first and second round matchup. But before we get into all that, it's been a long time since we've been on the Silky Mitts podcast because, we've been busy with school and the playoffs started in during finals week. So we didn't really have the time to do so, but we did some segments. We also had a good sin bin show. But the normal cast, Josh Bartosik, first time on the pod. Outside of last night, which we will get into, how has your day been, buddy? How has your day been?
Well, it's great. Today has been great because I was able to get all my anger and sadness into lifting heavy circles at the gym. And now I'm supporting my new favorite team, the Hayden Fleury Seattle Kraken. So let's go, boys.
Tim, I know your team isn't in the playoffs, but I imagine you've just still been enjoying playoff hockey, just stress-free, right? Just been laying back, watching all the people like Josh and me lose their freaking minds.
It honestly has been a lot of fun. And I mean, we talked about it all together, how we knew this playoffs was going to be exciting. And truly it has been. It's been a lot of fun to sit back and watch, but there's definitely times where you're like, well, my team was there last year. Why can't we be there this year? So, there's times like that, but overall it's been a really fun playoffs, a lot of storylines, which I know we'll definitely get into. But yeah, Josh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Dude, I went through 2011 to 2017 as a Canes fan. So I'm used to disappointment, just not at that level.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I've also been enjoying the playoffs, even though my team was knocked out round one. But one team that wasn't was the New York Rangers. So we're all rocking jerseys as usual. I'm wearing the New York Rangers' savior. Yes, he did. He saved their franchise, and you know it. I'm kidding.
I can't deny it at this point now, especially after the whole. I'm honestly amazed they fired half of their front office. And
now they're in the Eastern Conference final with.
Yeah, I'm well aware, Jacob.
Yeah. All right. So I want to talk about I want to talk about one team. So we're not going to recap every single first and second round series because that'll take forever. I want to talk about one team, and that's the Florida Panthers. All three of us agreed that we were not sold on the Florida Panthers. A lot of people gave me a lot of heat for saying that they weren't legit. Look what happened. I didn't expect them to get swept like that against Tampa Bay. I had Tampa Bay winning that series, but I think really, let's just start with a basic question. Josh, I'll take it to you. What do you think went wrong for the Florida Panthers?
Well, so it all starts with, you can obviously say the President's Trophy curse and just be basic, but you have to look at the stats. And it's the fact that this team literally in the regular season scored over 300 goals in the regular season. They had a plus 100 around goal differential. And they put up maybe 5-6 goals in 4 games against Tampa. They didn't score a single power play goal against the Washington Capitals.
Oh, yeah.
So they scored 1 against Tampa Bay, and it ended up being too little too late at that point. And, if you're not getting high quality chances and you're playing the best goaltender in the world in Andrei Vasilevsky, you're not going to win a series. And special teams, we can get into it with other teams, specifically the Carolina Hurricanes. In the Eastern Conference, special teams have been the killer for these teams that have lost, specifically Florida and specifically Carolina, where your power play is just abysmal and your penalty kill turns out to be abysmal because you're playing. Tampa and New York are around there at top, along with Edmonton with their power play percentage, which is how lethal they are. And so they took so many penalties and they just were not disciplined. And the veteran leadership, like you mentioned, Jacob, in our last Sin Bin talk show, was that they didn't have any veteran leadership, and it kind of showed. Tampa looked like the more well-structured team.
Yeah, I mean, look, how many times have when we talked about the playoffs, I said your stars have to be your stars, right? Jonathan Huberdeau did not show up. He had 5 points in 10 games, 1 goal. That's not the guy that we're talking about was an MVP snub, that he wasn't even a finalist, right? Your leading goal scorer and point scorer was Carter Verhaeghe, who I will give him a ton of credit. He had a fantastic both series. Honestly, he was probably the best player on Florida, but they went all in. They went on. They got Drew. He was honestly one of their better players in the Washington series. Tampa, I didn't really think there was a lot of positive when you watch that series, but Jacob, you said that you weren't surprised by the sweep, or that you were surprised by the sweep. I wasn't, based on watching the Washington series. I knew that Tampa was going to beat them, and I knew they were going to beat them down. Like I could tell, and especially how, I think, what was it, game 2 where they got that 6-second left game winner, right? That was the nail in the coffin right there in the beginning of the series. Just like that, it happened. It was Ross Colton got the game winner with 7 seconds left in the third period, right? It was just this team is young though, and I think that's the part where everybody's getting on Florida's case, like this was it. They're going to be here for the next 3, 4, 5 years. They'll be just fine. They needed that bump in the road to kind of get that out of their way. I will like to point out though, some of the comment sections in one of our videos was not a big fan of us saying that the Florida Panthers were not going to do that well. We thought Tampa or Florida was not a playoff built team, and well, I guess we were right. And there's a couple other people that are getting mad at me about the Leafs and the Calgary Flames, but you know what, we let the actions speak for themselves, right? So but look, overall, if you're a Florida fan, I understand the disappointment, especially losing to Big Brother, if you will, in Tampa Bay, but it's one season. They'll be exactly back here next year. I wouldn't be surprised if they're again in the race for President's Trophy again. They're that type of built team. I just think they're going to have to find maybe a little bit more veterans. I wouldn't be surprised if they bring Drew back too. That could be something that maybe could help propel them throughout the entire season and maybe get past the second round.
Yeah. My issue with Florida, especially in the Tampa series, was they didn't do the little things that Tampa did. Tampa beat them in the little things category, such as winning 50-50 battles, getting sticks and lanes, blocking shots. Steven Stamkos in one game had like 3 blocked shots. Where did you see a Florida Panthers star player, not just, the bottom 6 guys, put their body on the line? When your captain, like Steven Stamkos, is blocking shots like that, that speaks volumes for the entire locker room. That's what wins you a series. It's the little things. Florida is a team that was completely based on skill. Lots of offense. They're loaded on the back end and obviously goaltending, but they don't play that playoff style, that gritty style that, get in the grimy areas, winning those puck battles, scoring those goals in front of the net. Tampa was able to do that. And keep in mind, Tampa swept them without Braden Point, which was phenomenal. That just speaks, again, volumes to how much depth this Tampa team has. And really, after the Washington series, I knew Florida wasn't going to win another playoff series because they played 6 hard games to the Washington Capitals, probably the worst team in the playoffs. And Washington, they really figured out how to beat the Panthers, which was through the neutral zone. If you keep the puck away from them, if you stack up in the neutral zone, they're not going to be able to operate. And you mentioned, Josh, their power play was terrible. You don't win a series without scoring a power play goal. They were 0 for 18, 19 in the Washington series. And those guys, Tim, you mentioned Huberdeau, Barkov, they were actually playing well in the series against Washington, except, the Tampa series, Tampa just shut them down, and Andrei Vasilevsky is Andrei Vasilevsky. But you're right. I think Florida's going to be a contending team, but that just shows sometimes. When was the last time we saw a team go all in, make a big splash at the deadline, and then go all the way? Because it's not normally the case, because it's always the little additions.
Yeah. So, well, I will say that Tampa last year kind of went all in the fact that they literally went $30 million over the projected cap space, but we don't have to get into the cap circumvention again. But you guys are both right. I mean, that's the thing. So Florida just had a lot of mental lapses, specifically, like you mentioned, Tim, in game 2 with about 7 seconds left. Remember, we were talking about Mackenzie Weegar last year as a guy that was getting Norris votes. he completely left his man wide open in the slot, and Ross Golan's not going to miss from there. Ross Golan's a very underrated young guy, one of the few young guys really on Tampa because they've just got that core that they've had for years. And I agree. I do think Florida has a chance to stay where they are and, go back, maybe not win the President's Trophy, but I think they'll definitely be back in the playoffs. I just don't know exactly how they can do what exactly they can do. It's different from other teams because of the fact that they have that egregious Bobrovsky contract for the next 7-8 years at $10 million. And if you buy that out, you're just screwed even more. So for them, they have to figure that out. Spencer Knight, I think, is a year, maybe 2 years away from being a bona fide elite goaltender in this league. I thought he was one of the best goaltenders that I've seen besides Askarov, the guy that's now on the Predators now. And so when they get him, they'll be great. They do need better stay-at-home defensemen, I think, on the back end. I think Ekblad's getting up there in age. And you've got guys like Uyghur, who was supposed to be one of those guys and then just kind of lost his way there. But Tampa last year was definitely the first one that came to mind where they went all in. And you could kind of say Colorado went all in a sense, but they made the smaller moves with Manson and Nichushkin, which Nichushkin
Arturi Lehkonen.
Arturi Lehkonen. Oh, that's right. My bad. I got it wrong. It's Lehkonen. Arturi Lehkonen having a fantastic playoffs. Josh Manson. I'm still mad that there were no other teams that really made a deep push besides Boston for him, because Josh Manson has been having he had a phenomenal second round against the St. Louis Blues, and he's been helping wonders. And so, yeah, I think you might see some teams stop making those deep pushes, specifically the fact that the Panthers traded a first round pick for Ben Sherrod, who ended up being their worst defenseman analytically in that series, which I think we all could have seen that coming. He's been really very not great. And so for Florida, they just have to make a couple of moves. It would be interesting to see if they brought back Giroux. I don't know if they necessarily have the cap space to do it because of how their former GM just kind of landlocked them with Bobrovsky, but we'll have to see. It's certainly going to be an interesting offseason.
I will say, though, too, the big thing for me is there's not much that Florida needs to change personnel-wise. It's just you could see it with the Washington series as well. They played Washington's game. For Tampa, they played Tampa's game. They never played their own game, their style of hockey in any of these playoff series. There were many times where, we were all talking to each other about how Florida was being super physical against Washington. That's not what they do, though. That's not their play style, is being super physical, hit them. It wore them down. It made them worse almost. And, we talked about how Florida's power play wasn't effective. How about the amount of penalties they took? We talk about Mackenzie Weegar. He had 10 penalty minutes. Sam Bennett had 12. Aaron Ekblad, one of your best defensemen, had 11 penalty minutes. That can't happen. You can't be taking penalties against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Like that's not a good recipe for success for you. So if Florida is able to just play their game, I think they'll be just fine. But I think it's that lack of veteranship that makes them realize, okay, this is how we're able to turn the tide in our favor. So I think just over time, the more playoff experience they get, I think they'll be just fine.
Yeah, well, Florida, I'm actually looking now. Florida was actually 7th in the league in hits in the regular season. But yeah, you're right. They were trying to adjust a little too much. I remember when they finally did score the power play goal, they changed their formation to get a bit, because one of the storylines about the Panthers power play was they went with 5 forwards and that didn't work. And then they switched their formation, I think, I'm going to get in a little technical here, but from the umbrella formation to the 1-3-1, and that worked out really well. They ended up scoring a goal. But yeah, you guys said it. And, Florida, again, it's the little additions. It's the guys like Ross Colton and thinking back to last year, Blake Coleman, this year, Corey Perry, who has been terrific, Anthony Cirelli, Nick Paul. It's those kind of guys that Florida needs, because they had 30 goal scorers in the regular season. That's great and all, but you also have to do those, little things, winning those 50-50 battles. I mean, that's one of the more underrated parts about playoff hockey, is those puck races and the 50-50 battles really do go a long way. And Tampa really beat them in that department for sure. So I think that's enough talk about the Florida Panthers. Oh yeah, one more thing. Like, they're definitely going to be back. I think Claude Giroux has expressed interest in re-signing with the Panthers. We just don't know how long because I believe he's 35 now, and I think he'd be a great fit there. He'll be a good second line center, can play first line. But no, the Florida Panthers will be back. It's just this was their first time of failing expectations as the favorite, and that's totally okay. Washington did it for years. Colorado did it for years.
Tampa did it for years.
And Tampa, yep, in 2019, I always say, you have to have that kind of facing adversity part. Maybe not the same as like what Washington did for a decade, but still going to have those moments. Florida did. They'll definitely be back in the playoffs along with Tampa in the Atlantic Division. All right, another team that I want to talk about. I know Josh is itching to talk about the Hurricanes, but we're going to talk about them later. I can
save my voice for later.
Yeah. I want to talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs because, one of the same lines as Tampa. This team, so one thing that was, so even though the Maple Leafs lost, this was a different Maple Leafs team. This really was. Yes, they fell short, but that game 7 could have gone either way, and the Toronto gave the two-time defending Stanley Cup champions everything they had. Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner were both excellent. They were producing unlike last year against Montreal. So my question for you guys is, does Toronto run it back with the same core? Because I think they do, because, again, they were this close, and they could have easily won.
No, I absolutely 100% agree. I think they need to run it back with the same core. I mean, we were asking the same question last year when they choked the 3-1 series lead against Montreal. And we were like, we don't know exactly what this team needs to do. Like, what are they missing? If this Maple Leafs team had showed up in any other series, in any other year in the first round, they would have won. 100% they would have won.
They played any other team, they would have won. 100%.
Oh, no question they would have beat any other team. And it really just came down to, penalty minutes for them. Toronto lost in the first round in 7 games. They still had the 5th most penalty minutes out of any team in the playoffs. They had 134 penalty minutes in 7 games. A lot of those are, granted, fighting majors and all that because those teams were very rough, but they took a lot of penalties against a Tampa power play that we know is just so dominant. Jason Spezza just retired, had a fantastic career, 5 points shy of 1,000, which is just brutal to see. But I think besides that, I don't know what else they really need to do. I think they're in a good spot personally. I know that their fans have got to be exhausted and just heartbroken that this keeps happening, but I really thought they're going to do it. It really, for me, it came down to that game 6 in overtime where Austin Matthews had a breakaway. He had a streak. I think it was Sandin that tried to pass it to him, but then Matthews fell down on his backside at center ice, and then it led to the Braden Point goal. But I mean, they played specifically in game 1 and 2, because Cheris, we were watching that game together, and the way that Toronto dominated game 1, we thought that they could have won it in 4 or 5, honestly, with the way that they were playing. And so, I mean, again, you're playing the 2-time Stanley Cup champions. You're playing a team that has a ridiculous core with Kucherov and Stamkos and Hedman and Braden Point and the best goaltender in the world. And it kind of came down to that in game 7. Jack Campbell, the second goal he gave up, wasn't necessarily a good one to give up. But Jack Campbell exceeded a lot of expectations in this series. He played phenomenal for the most part for the Maple Leafs. And he was honestly one of the reasons that the series went as long as it did in some of those games. So I think for Toronto, you just maybe make a couple of minor moves, nothing too major. And I like the Mark Giordano re-signing on that low value. It's a great low risk, high reward signing for them. But other than that, I don't really know. I was disappointed in them last year. I'm still disappointed in them this year, but I think they have more of a direction this year than they did last year after their series loss.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's time though that we have to start. I don't think they should blow up the core, but I think it's time now you start climbing up the ranks. Kyle Dubas is great. I like Kyle Dubas a lot as a general manager. Brendan Shanahan as the president has to go because, it was the Shana plan. Like that's what this has been for the past since 2013 when he took over for Lou Lamoriello. So he's been doing this now. It's just I don't know how I could be a Toronto Maple Leafs fan right now, because I would just be so sick and tired of just hearing we're keeping the core together, we're keeping the core together, and then just keep losing in game 7 after game 7 after game 7. Because losing in game 7 means you were in it. You were in the entire series, and it came down to one game, and you couldn't show up that game. The storyline that the Leafs had for these past few playoffs have been their stars have not shown up. They completely and utterly destroyed that. Austin Matthews deserves the MVP. Absolutely. And he showed it in this playoff series that he can play in the big time games. Mitch Marner played in the big time games. He didn't take any, puck over the glass penalties. He played smart hockey. William Nylander showed up. What I would do, and I know this is going to sound like, oh, he's just saying that because he's an Islanders fan.
I can feel it coming.
I think you have to move on from your captain. And I'll tell you why. Jacob, I know you're shaking your head at me. A second line center like Tavares is replaceable. What you need is, I would say, another top 4 defenseman or a true number 1 goaltender. And I don't mean that disrespectfully to Jack Campbell, because I think Jack Campbell really did play well. But Josh, as you mentioned, there were some goals that he let up that you're like, if that was Bobrovsky, even, I think he would have saved that. If that was, Ranta, the way that he was playing, I think he would have saved that. It's just, that was Freddie Anderson. I think he would have saved that. So it was just a couple of those times where it's like, maybe, you go out for, and again, who do you have helping Morgan Riley defensively? Also, by the way, I don't know if you guys know this, Morgan Riley took the most penalties on the team. He had 17 penalty minutes. That's unacceptable. That is unacceptable. As your offensive-minded defenseman, that can't happen. So, look, I know more than anybody how influential John Tavares is to a team. But I think, you got a guy like Alexander Kerfoot, who I think could easily replace him. I think Kerfoot's very underrated. I think he's the type of guy that, sure, he's not going to be a point-per-game player, but he's on the penalty kill. He's on the power play. He does the little things right. Why not get some better weapons surrounding your true core in Matthews, Marner, Nylander? Those are your guys. Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Riley, that's your team. That is your guys. You got to add one more to that on the defensive side. And with, Marner making 11 mil, Matthews making 11 mil, Tavares making 11 million, Riley making 9 million, Nylander making 7 million. Having all 5 of those guys taking up more than half of your cap space, you don't have that flexibility to make moves anymore. You just don't. So you have to lose one of those pieces in order to keep your young guys that are doing good. Obviously Bunting's still on a rookie deal, but he played fantastic this year. He's going to need a contract extension soon. Kerfoot needs a contract extension. Campbell needs a contract extension. You are not going to be able to keep your younger guys if you have these 5 guys making up more than half your cap space. So I think they have to move on from one of them. And I think the most expendable piece is John Tavares because of his age and because of what role he plays.
I actually agree with Tim.
Yeah, that's actually a fair point. Now that I think about it, I don't think they're gonna do that. I think it's highly unlikely they do that. If we're being realistic,
I agree.
That contract, isn't the greatest. Not a lot. It's John Tavares. He's a terrific player, but he's not going to go to, say, Arizona where they have a lot of cap space. They don't need him. John Tavares, wants to win a cup. But yes, if you can't get rid of Matthews, can't get rid of Marner. But again, they were just this close. And in years past, Toronto, as a team, not just start players, in game 7, they would choke. They would play a terrible game 7. This team against Hammond, they played a terrific game 7. Towards the final horn, they were getting shots on Vasilevsky, and the puck just couldn't find its way to the back of the net. Leafs Twitter was actually positive that night, surprisingly, because they saw a different Leafs team that put up a great fight that lost to the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champions. That's hard to be mad about. And that's why I think you keep you do a little tinkering, but getting rid of a big piece like Tavares now after you were this close, I don't think is the right move. But if you're going to get rid of one, right, I mean, there could be some cap retention. If you're going to get rid of one, it's likely JT. How old is he?
He's I think he's 34 now. He's getting up there. But again, at the same time, if you don't want to get rid of players, that's fine too. But you can't keep the same front office anymore. Front office has to change then. Because
but Shanahan needs to go.
Right. Because every single year, the problem has been the players on the ice. It's never been what has the front office done.
Yeah.
I thought the front office did a great job.
I did an exceptional job this year. He really did, especially at the trade deadline.
Yeah, and I thought, like you guys said, I thought this Toronto Maple Leafs team was different. You can tell they played a different style. They played their hockey. They played like that. They knew who they were and that they could go toe-to-toe with any team. Any team. You know, that almost could have been an Eastern Conference final. And if Toronto matched up with anybody else, probably would have been the Eastern Conference final. You know, so it's one of those things where it's a tough pill to swallow, but at the same time, you can't just keep sitting back and saying nobody is to blame or the players are to blame. It has to come up. It starts from the top.
And he has so there's a lot of guys that are free agents this year that could fill in that 2C role. First in the mind, obviously they're not going to do it, but we saw how Nazem Kadri did in Colorado this year. He's a free agent. Colorado doesn't necessarily have a ton of cap space. They got to re-sign McKinnon and Rantanen soon. You've got guys like Vinny Trocheck. I think you can safely say that after Carolina gave that extension to Kotkaniemi for 8 years, I think it's safe to say that they're walking Vinny Trocheck out the door, who didn't have a great playoffs, but he's one of those guys great in the faceoff dot, and he's really good at getting the puck into the offensive zone. He has a great transition game, and that's something they could use. And he's not going to be worth $11 million. He'll probably be worth maybe 5 or 6 in that 6 to 7 range, maybe. And you save some cap. You go out and get a defenseman like you were mentioning, to maybe not a top 4 guy for only $4 or $5 million, but you can still find something. And so there's a lot of guys that are available for them. And I think you definitely have to explore your options, because John Tavares is locked up long-term with $11 million. And that first year, he played like he deserved the $11 million. Recently, he's still been good, but it's not Austin Matthews 60 goals good. It's more like a guy it's more like, how many goals he had this year? Like around the 40 range, or was it a little below?
Who?
Can't remember. Hold on. But I mean,
Tavares.
I think around
it's
30.
just,
Yeah. Yeah. I think
hit around 30. See, that's the thing. A guy like Andrei Svechnikov had 30 goals this year, and he's making what, $7 million? 30 perennial 30 goal scorers don't make $11 million. Game-changing talents, which John Tavares used to be for the Islanders, make $11 million in their prime, like McDavid, like Matthews, like Ovechkin. Tavares isn't that kind of guy. He never really has been since he left, or since his first year in Toronto, and it's kind of showing. And so it's really one of those moves that's come back to bite them, in the sense that, yes, he's great. He's a great 2 center, but not at $11 million.
Has health been an issue for him? I feel like health has been an issue for him.
Yeah. He's definitely gotten injured at times, for sure.
Especially last year when he almost got his head like ripped off.
Yeah. So
yeah,
that's been a factor. But still, Matthews having the year they have, I think the Toronto Maple Leafs, they're in a good spot. When I saw the matchup, Toronto playing Tampa, I did have Tampa because, again, Tampa just knows how to do it. It doesn't matter who they have. They just know how to win. And it was just another tough pill to swallow for Toronto, but you can't even be mad. I think they run it back. And I think this year, depending on who they play and how the team's playing, I think this is the year they finally slay the dragon and get it done. Tim, go ahead.
But didn't we say that last year?
And the year before that?
Like that. That's my point. You know what I mean?
That's why I said depending on who they play.
But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me, because I'm not talking more for the slay the dragon part. I'm talking more for the fact of, all right, they keep it together this year, and then if they don't do well, then we'll make a change. They've been saying that for every other year now. It's time to act. It's time to act now. You know, Matthews and Marner and Nylander aren't getting any younger, right? But you got to act. You got to make a move. You have to.
Yep. But we'll see come free agency. But yeah, I don't know. Just haven't get it done. But, you know, I'll say it again. I think hopefully, depending on who they play in the playoffs, I think they'll make another they'll play another tight series. I don't think they'll choke like they have prior. All right, let's move on to another team that did choke in the playoffs. Which one do I start? Calgary or Carolina? The Battle of Alberta.
Start with the thing that would make me feel good, which is ragging on you for the Calgary Flames.
All right, okay. First off, the Battle of Alberta. Doesn't matter what happened. That was an amazing series.
Criminal only went 5.
And I'm gonna say this one thing about Calgary because I was sold on them, but their end of season injury list is incredible. Yes, teams have to play injured. I get it. But some star got like Kachuk had a messed up hand. Mangiapane was dealing with something. Those are big time players that, and along with the other guys that are playing hurt with major injuries. Zadorov, I think, played with some broken ribs. I forget who's getting surgery. I don't know if it's Lucic or Zadorov or it's Chris Tanev. Huh?
I was about to say, there's no way you're saying Lucic is a star player.
No, I'm going through the injury list. I'm saying like, the big guys that were injured.
But here's my thing.
Go for it.
That would make look again. Yes, every team has injuries, and you've seen teams like Tampa and these teams that have once their series is done or their playoffs are done, or when they win the Stanley Cup, you have this huge list of injuries, and teams can still win the cup. They should have won this series easily. It comes down to the fact that they took a lot of penalties, which you can't really do against Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. Zach Hyman had a fantastic series as well. So did Duncan Keith, surprisingly, which that's just funny to me. Here's my thing. When it comes to goaltending, you have a Vezina finalist who a lot of people would have picked Freddie Anderson had he not gotten hurt over Jacob Markstrom. You had a Vezina finalist who had worse stats than Mike Smith, who plays like it's still 1965. He is terrible. I don't care if he only gave up 1 goal in game 4 or 5, whatever it was. I don't care. He is garbage. Absolutely terrible. We saw it in the 1 goal he gave up from 175 feet away in the playoffs in a game. Was it 4? It was game 4. That's a crucial part of the series. And he's giving up a goal like that. You cannot have your starting goaltender, a guy that last year did not play very well, and a lot of people were harping on him. You can't have a guy be a regular season performer and then not show up in the playoffs. Johnny Gaudreau had a great first round against Dallas. He really did. And what I don't understand is that you had guys that were scoring, and then all of a sudden they don't know how to do it against Mike Smith. And again, you had multiple games where you had multi-goal leads that you blew with a Vezina finalist in net. And this is what me and Tim were saying. We don't trust Calgary. And this is exactly why. They were gifted a Western Conference final berth. Yeah. Gifted. You're playing a Dallas Stars team that has the worst year out of Tyler Seguin and Jamie Benn that you've ever seen. And a goaltender that's in his second year, granted, Jake Oettinger was a god in the
his
first
game
round.
7 performance was unbelievable.
Absolutely incredible. And then you're playing a team that, yes, has the best player in the world, but also has the worst goaltender the worst starting goaltender in the league in Mike Smith. I would take anyone over Mike Smith. And the fact that Colorado's going to run away with that series, man. Yep. Like, he can't save anything. I just don't understand. And this is the thing. I think for Calgary, I mean, me and Tim talked about this a while. Sean Monahan needs to go. He's needed to go for years.
That's the one thing I agree. Sean Monahan was a ghost all season. And I know that because I drafted him on fantasy.
Every year in the playoffs, he's making like $5 or $6 million. He needs to go. It was absolutely embarrassing. The amount of penalties they took, I get that it's the Battle of Alberta and you're, trying to show toughness. Be disciplined against a team that has a 35% power play. Please be disciplined. It killed them in this. It killed them in this series. And it's the same thing that killed the Carolina Hurricanes in their series. They don't have discipline. But for Calgary, it's a little different when you know that Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, who, as Tim mentioned before we got on this Zoom call, have 52 combined points in less than 20 games. Maybe don't take penalties against those guys, but that's just me. I thought Daryl Sutter, I thought he was very blunt. I thought he was very straightforward with the fact that he said after game one, if McDavid keeps getting 4 points a game, we're not going to win this series. And that's exactly what happened. They didn't win the series. And I'm just glad that me and Tim called this in February. So now we can have our age appropriate drinks on the beach and just laugh and talk.
Boy, does this put a smile to my face. Like, this is just incredible. I mean, look, Jacob, I hate to tell you that you were wrong. However, you were wrong.
Yes,
And I'll tell you why here. Everything that Josh said was so correct. I mean, it was absolutely true. And I'll be honest with you, if it was any other team besides the Dallas Stars, probably would have lost round 1 too. It was just, I don't know how anybody ever has faith in the team. Jacob, your point was, they got depth scoring now. Tyler Toffoli,
Toffoli
Coleman,
was absent.
These guys are going to do it for us, right? Where were they, Jacob?
Yeah,
I couldn't see
I just said Toffoli was absent. I didn't even know he was on the ice. Mangiapane, granted he was playing hurt. Mangiapane wasn't there. Kachuk also playing hurt.
You want to know who's also playing hurt? Leon Draisaitl.
Yeah,
I don't know if you know this, but everybody's talking about it. That Leon Draisaitl is not himself, and he has 26 points right now.
I was gonna say that, like, when we previewed the series, like, that is remarkable what he's able to do. Also, Darnell Nurse is playing with some type of injury too.
Well, he also has a brain injury because some of the things that he's doing is just not the smartest thing in the world. I mean, headbutting Philip Deneau against the Kings was truly a thing of beauty. But
and also we were wrong about the Kings. Actually, they had a good series with that.
If they 7, it was very close.
If they had Doughty, I truly think they would have won. If they had Doughty, I really think they would have won.
It took a last 5-minute goal from Connor McDavid. Who else to send Edmonton to the second round? They played phenomenal.
And I want to touch on Markstrom before Tim, you go back. You know what? I watched that series. Some of the goals he gave up, sometimes they were both partly because he was left out to dry a lot because of the speed of the Oilers. Like when you have McDavid dancing around your team, going around, I forget who it was Zadora that tried to knock him out the puck. Jacob Markstrom can't do anything except just watch his brilliance. But occasionally he would give up a bad goal. And that series itself was extremely high scoring. That was just the nature of the series. But Markstrom should have come up with a couple of more key saves. I 100% agree with you. And he was great in the Dallas series. Like, let's be honest. He was actually really good in the Dallas series when Calgary did have a defensive breakdown. It's just Edmonton was a faster team. They generated more offense. They were better through the neutral zone. But the main difference for me, really, was not just Markstrom. It was the defense as a whole. Because I'm not one to blame goalies because I think it's about the team in front. Take Carter Hart last year. But yeah, I think it was primarily the defense, the structure, and also Calgary playing, had a lot of injuries. But still, yeah, again, I'm willing to admit I was wrong. I won't trust the Flames again, just like how I won't trust the Hurricanes again. Tim, continue.
It was so funny.
That was so harsh. But look, I mean, the thing though is, the thing with Calgary is every year people are talking about they have to blow it up. I think this year they officially do. I don't think Johnny Gaudreau resigns. I really don't think Johnny Hockey comes back. I think he'll get a payday somewhere else, and I think he'll go to a better contender than Calgary.
I think he was the best 5-on-5.
He was
points or whatever. Something.
Okay, but Jacob, at some point it comes to a point.
I'm just saying that.
No, I agree. And if you're that talented of a player, you're that caliber of player, and your team consistently falls short every year, and you're in a contract year, you should leave.
Yeah,
you should honestly leave.
And he had an MVP type season. That's why I'm surprised. Like, where was he? That's why I was so surprised. He had his career season. Why aren't you taking that into the postseason? Like, it happens with a lot of guys, but still.
Well, Tim pointed out in our segment. He pulled up the video of last year against 2 years ago against Colorado where he whiffed on a penalty shot. It happens every year with him. He just doesn't show up.
And it's hard too because he somewhat did against Dallas. You know what I mean? He performed against Dallas. And look, I think it's safe to assume that Dallas really should not have been in the playoffs. The only reason that it honestly went to 7 was Jake Ottinger, who, in my opinion, is the round one MVP and his team lost because of how well he did.
I think he should win the Conn Smythe.
Honestly, why not? But like the thing with me, for Jacob, the two big reasons for you of why you said that this team was different was depth scoring, which I have an easier time of seeing John Cena than I see some of the players on the ice for the Calgary Flames, like Tyler Toffoli. And Blake Coleman too really did not perform that well. And it was defense. Like a lot of people are high on Elias Lindholm. I'm really not. I'm not a big Elias Lindholm fan.
Not a defenseman.
I know. I'm just saying because I'm saying everybody here, but because another guy that is like another like two-way forward, if you will, is Mikkel Backlund. Like I'm talking about like all guys that play defense and they just didn't play defense. Nobody played defense on this team. Nobody helped Markstrom. Like Markstrom played bad, yes, but it was something that we talked about. I mean, obviously, I hate the Rangers, and I really don't want to talk about the Rangers, but we are. But when we talked about on our segment how the structure in front of Shesterkin was terrible, and the Rangers defense was not helping him out. Obviously, we've seen that change, and I don't want to talk about it, but they didn't help out Markstrom much. Yes, Markstrom did not perform, but where was Rasmus Anderson? Where was former Canes legend Noah Hannafin? Like where
Lindholm.
where are these players? They're just not showing up in front of your goaltender. And where are the forwards not coming back on defense? When did you see Kachuk come back on defense much? I didn't. When did you see Johnny Hockey come back on defense much? It wasn't a full 200% effort. They didn't give it everything that they had. When you can clearly see how much this means to Connor McDavid to be here right now, and he's giving it every inch that he has. And by the way, so is most of the Edmonton team. Obviously, Mike Smith doesn't know how to play goalie. I think, honestly, Jacob would be a better goalie than him at this point because 100. Okay, anyways.
Well, yeah, I mean, 3/4 of the ice in a playoff in a game.
Both goalies, to be fair, both goalies were not good. But yes, Calgary
to be fair, only one goalie gave up a goal on the power play from 3/4 away. And then I want to point out. Well, look, I just want to talk about the fact that right after that goal went in, Mike Smith didn't go, "Oh, my bad, guys, that's on me." He immediately looked around and threw his arms up like he was looking for someone to blame. He never takes the blame for the fact that he's a terrible goaltender, and I will stand by that.
You're absolutely right. His reaction was terrible.
I think he was just like, "What the heck? Like how?"
But he was looking to blame his defensemen, who, by the way, were up on the rush because they were on the power play.
Yeah, well, they won the game, so all right,
and they won the series. That's all that matters. But let me just wrap it up. I think, with Johnny Gaudreau's not coming back, Monahan's going to be gone very soon. I think it's time that the Calgary Flames start to rebuild. And my full point is that they won't because of their head coach. Because their head coach doesn't like to rebuild. And I know this because he was the head coach of the Kings. And the Kings didn't like to rebuild when he was there.
Yeah. All right. So now it's time for everyone's favorite. So you got to rip on me. Now we're ripping on you, Mr. Bartosik.
Hey, I never said the Kings. I didn't even think Kings would get out of the first round.
All right, so
already at the time.
The Carolina Hurricanes, Metro Division champs.
Don't say that to me right now, bro.
Svechnikov, 30 goals. Anderson, potential Vezina finalist season. And they laid a complete egg in Game 7 where the stakes were high.
They scored 2 goals.
And 6.
They laid an egg.
No, that's
You're
also forgetting Norris Trophy caliber defenseman Tony DeAngelo, who
he was not good. What went wrong outside of the penalty kill, which was abysmal? What happened to the Carolina Hurricanes? Because both of you were saying how Shesterkin's going to get burned out, and how the Rangers have one of the worst offensive systems in the league. The Rangers in that series against Carolina played some of the best defense that I've seen.
I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it because against the Pittsburgh Penguins, they looked like trash. They were horrible.
If they were horrible. if they were not playing Louis Domingue, they would have lost that series in 5. But because
Literally.
they're playing Louis Domingue,
Domingue.
they played a lot of backup goaltenders. But I will admit, a lot of people are saying the same thing about Antti Ranta. Antti Ranta is not a backup goaltender. Yes, he backs up Freddie Anderson. He's more of a 1B guy. He was phenomenal in the playoffs at home, not on the road.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start with the penalty kill because
Here we go.
the penalty kill, first of all, one of the top ones in the regular season, along with the power play, which I'll get into that too. Penalty kill. In the regular season, it was whatever. They only 16 of their 82 games, they took a penalty in the first 5 minutes of the game, which, you don't want to do that, right? You don't want to put yourself behind already. In 8 of their 14 playoff games, they took a penalty within the first 2 minutes. 2, not 5, 2. And they did that against a Boston team that normally has a very good power play, and they did in round 1. The only reason they won Game 7 against Boston was because Boston had no power plays in that game.
And Max Domi was terrific.
Max Domi was great, but also Brendan Smith should have got a penalty for jumping into David Pasternak's head, and that would have probably given Boston the game. We're not going to get into that. This team, it's the same thing every year since 2019, every year since 2019, or even before then. You have these guys that have great regular seasons. Sebastian Aho, Teuvo Teravainen, Andres Svechnikov, yada, yada, yada. Where are any of them in the playoffs? Teravainen had a decent playoffs when he decided to actually shoot the puck, which he never does. Svechnikov had 3 shots in this series. 3. 1 goal.
1 goal.
Sebastian Aho, 2 points in this series. Looked completely invisible. Tony DeAngelo, who, by the way, you took on a lot of risk bringing this guy in, 1 point. Igor Shesterkin had more points in Game 6 than Tony DeAngelo did in the entire series. And he was your Dougie Hamilton replacement, who, by the way, should still be on the Carolina Hurricanes, because I said it at the beginning of this year. I thought the team took a step back. I really did. I thought they did. I think you had a huge downgrade in your defensive system, especially moving on from Hayden Fleury and Jake Bean and bringing in Ian Cole, who in the regular season was great. Complete bonehead in the playoffs along with Brendan Smith.
Hey, he scored the overtime winner in Game 2.
No, Ryan Lindgren scored the overtime winner in that game. Let's be honest.
He shot the puck.
That's fantastic. You know who didn't shoot the puck at all? The rest of the team. And that's why I don't really want to give credit to the Rangers defensive system, because of the fact that no one on Carolina actually really tried in the offensive zone or at all. And it's the same thing every year in the playoffs. Everyone disappears. They all disappear. And I'm going to get more into that later. The last few years, it's been great. Carolina has a pretty decent first half of the season. They should have had a phenomenal first half of the season. They were a sub 500 team post All-Star break, sub 500 or near 500. You're not going to make a deep run in the playoffs. They were carried by their hot start. They were terrible in January and February, and the power play since February was 12 for 114 or something. It's ridiculous. They scored technically 2 power play goals in the Rangers series, but we don't really count anything that happened in Game 7 because no one on Carolina actually really showed up for that game. The inability to play on the road is ridiculous. You cannot win in the playoffs by going 0 for 6 on the road. You can't keep having this do or die situation happen, and that bit them because the Rangers clearly wanted it more. They clearly did. Carolina played absolutely bonehead. They took so many penalties. They're the third most penalized team in these playoffs, and the top 2 teams were in the Battle of Alberta, so they kind of get a pass. Carolina has 145 penalty minutes. The next lowest team has 115. It's unbelievable. It was absolutely ridiculous. And it comes down to this. Everyone says that Carolina has, star power. They have these stars now. Aho, Svechnikov, Teravainen, yada, yada, yada. If they don't show up in the playoffs, I'm not considering them superstars. They can be great players. I don't think Carolina has any true game-changing talent. And Brind'Amour said it best after the Game 7 loss. They don't have a single elite goal scorer on that team. Not one. It's been that problem for years. They keep in the offseason going for bottom 6 guys that were okay in their last season, and they come in and they, score 10 goals and take a bunch of penalties. They trade all their youth defensemen to bring in a gritty guy who ends up forgetting how to play hockey at the end of the season, aka Brendan Smith and Ian Cole. And then you just don't have any guys that show up in the playoffs. I think Aho is a phenomenal player. I think we can all agree that Aho and Teravainen and Svechnikov are phenomenal players. I don't consider them superstars if they're not showing up when it matters most. No one showed up in Game 7. It's a do or die. You're one game away from the Eastern Conference Finals. Yes, you probably been smoked by Tampa. 100% probably smoked by Tampa. And I think we can agree that Rangers are going to get smoked by Tampa because Tampa's just that good right now. But to have no one show up for the entire series, especially a Game 7 at home, you went down 4-0 through a period and a half at home. At home. It was absolutely ridiculous. And now I'm just so happy because there's no more Tony DeAngelo in the playoffs. And I can finally say that was the worst signing of all time. Of all time. He's not a power play quarterback. He's more offensive off the ice than he is on it, dude. It's absolutely ridiculous. He's so bad. No back check. He was terrible. Jacob Slavin was doing all the work in that.
Yeah, he was caught below the goal line sometimes.
Oh,
I remember his pinches were terrible.
It's not, and not only that, but why did he and Max Domi, I'm throwing Max Domi into this as well. Why did they both decide to try and start something after they got embarrassed in Game 3 and 4? What are you doing? Why are you letting them get into your head? You said that you were a changed man because, after you punched your own teammate in the face, and now you're going and you're cross-checking guys in the neck and yelling at Gerard Gallant. Like, that's going to change anything? He played terrible. And for Carolina, they need to make some serious changes in this offseason. I think the goaltending situation is fine. They finally have guys. Kochetkov proved near the end of the season and in Game 3 against Boston, or Game 2 against Boston, that he is a pretty decent goaltender. I think give him a year or two. I think similar with Spencer Knight, but Spencer Knight, I think, has the edge there. They need goal scoring. They need goal scoring bad. It's been a thing. They need guys that actually know how to do it. And that's why when they didn't go out for like a big name, like a Jake DeBrusk, or in the offseason last year when Tarasenko was available, they didn't go for that. They went for a guy like Max Domi, who scored 2 goals all season, who granted won them the game in Game 7 against Boston, but didn't do anything else besides that, besides take a boatload of penalties and get rocked by Jacob Trouba at center ice. I mean, they have to seriously look at this team and figure out what they're going to do. Tony DeAngelo should not be re-signed. They're probably going to re-sign him because he's an offensive defenseman, and you let Dougie Hamilton walk for dirt cheap. And frankly, there's no good offensive defenseman on the market coming out this year. There really aren't. There's just nothing going on there. And oh my dude, it's the same thing every year. It's different now because at least they're in the playoffs, but it's the same. Besides goaltending, it's the exact same issues they've had for the last 15 years. 15. They don't change anything. And it's getting near the point where if I don't see things change, like you could blow up everything but keep like Slavin, Aho, Teravainen, and Svechnikov if things keep going this bad. Where's the offense? You signed Kotkaniemi to an 8-year extension. 1 point in the playoffs. 1. It's ridiculous. They had no scoring. Nino Niederreiter saved that franchise through the rest of the regular season and into the beginning of the playoffs. It's absolutely pathetic. I'm glad they lost in Game 7 because at least now things might hopefully change. But you lost to a team that you were expected to beat in 3 games. And you got embarrassed on your home ice. Absolutely ridiculous. Disgraceful. Tim, go ahead. I need water.
Poor guy. Oh man, that was awesome to watch. I'm not gonna lie, I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, make it quick as well. I mean, but we want to get to the.
I got you. What I will say, Josh, you're gonna hate me for this, and I know it. Ladies and gentlemen, the Calgary Flames of the East is the Carolina Hurricanes, and
yes. Oh, he's gone.
And you know why he's mad?
Because he's right.
It's because he knows I'm right. And that's the part that hurts is this team is going to be poor guy. This team is going to be the same. And it's just, they don't show up when it matters. And it's been like that for years now. They have to change something. They won't. They're going to keep it the same. They're not going to go for the big fish because that's what they do. They go for the, the locker room guys, as I like to call Tony D'Angelo, a locker room guy.
Oh, Max Domi too, great locker room presence.
Especially with his dad. So it's one of those things where I'm so sorry, but this Carolina Hurricanes team, I'm so disappointed in this team. I am so disappointed in this team. And I know, Josh, you are probably the most disappointed, but as an Islanders fan, to have to sit through a New York Rangers versus Tampa Bay Lightning Eastern Conference final, are you kidding me?
I'm so sorry. I did point out before the playoffs started, and Cheris was getting on me for this. He's like, dude, your team's in the first in the Metro. Calm down. I remember telling you guys that there was something about this team that felt off.
You were right.
Yeah, you're right.
Right with this team. And it's now one of those things where this team went from, in 2019, this team is similar to the Rangers team where no one really expected them to go far, but they had a bright future. They have significantly shortened their window to win a Stanley Cup because of the fact that they have just shipped off all these top end prospects for a guy they keep for 2 months that doesn't do anything. And that's the thing. It's going to continue to do that way. They have a lot of offensive depth in the prospect pool, but you can't expect them to become a guy like Vladimir Tarasenko or a Nazem Kadri in the playoffs. They're not going to be those guys. You need to go out and actually get a big name guy. I have been on the Jake DeBrusk train for 5 years. It's never going to happen. I know the Canes are going to go out and they're going to re-sign Tony D'Angelo and they're going to sign Max Domi to an 8x8 deal. And I am going to cry.
And with that, let's get into the Eastern Conference final between the Tampa Bay Lightning and the New York Rangers.
My two favorite teams. Let's keep going.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to say this. I think this series is actually going to be a lot closer than most people think. I really do. Because you know the saying right now, no quit in New York. The Rangers were down 3-1 against the Penguins. Yes, it was the Penguins. Coming down 3-1 is still really hard to do.
They're playing.
You got to give them a lot of credit on the way they played, especially because they were trailing a lot. They've trailed in a lot of games and they've been able to come back.
Oh, I'm sure it's so hard to play against Louis Domingue. I'm sure it's so hard.
Carolina's supposed to be that team, right? And the Rangers,
that's a great point.
Wanted it more. I don't think the Rangers are going to win this series, but don't count them out. I think it all depends. It all depends on Igor Shesterkin. This is really going to test him. This is the series that's really going to test how he does.
Tested against Carolina.
You're wrong.
He was tested against Pittsburgh, though. He was tested a lot against Pittsburgh, and he got exposed a little bit.
The thing is, it doesn't. Shesterkin did I truly believe he did a very good job in the Carolina series. I thought he was pretty poor for his standards against Pittsburgh, but it doesn't matter when you're talking about, that they had no quit against Pittsburgh. They played Louis Domingue. They had no quit against Carolina. They played Antti Ranta. They had no quit against Tampa. You're going to get it past Vasilevsky? Really?
That's why I said it's going to be a goal. It's going to be a goaltending duel, which
it's not even that point
is better. And also,
but it's not fully a goalie duel for the fact that, okay, what about the team in front of them? You have you have no idea how much this hurts me right now. You don't understand. I'm hyping up the Tampa Bay Lightning. Do you understand what that means? I was here 2 years ago where the Rangers are. I know what it's like. Okay.
Tim, I wish I could give you a big virtual hug right now.
The team in front of them is Victor Hedman, Nikita, I'm hurt until playoffs time, Kucherov. You have Stamkos, who is honestly just a great dude. I have nothing bad to say about him. He's just a really good human being. You have these guys have done it. They've been there, done that. This is going to be a cakewalk for them. The Rangers are going to be riding this high, man. And again, you want to know how I know this? It's because I know a team that kind of did that the past 2 years, that were riding this high of, oh my God, we just beat the Boston Bruins to get to the Eastern Conference final. It's our time against Tampa. No, it's not. No, it's not New York. No, it's not. And specifically, I said New York there because there's a team that couldn't get it done. And it's the same situation as the Rangers here. It's not that they don't have good goaltending. The Islanders last year have Varlamov, who did a great job. Shesterkin's doing incredible. It's not like that they didn't have the defensive structure. The Islanders had that defensive structure. Right now, the Rangers are playing probably some of their best defense they played all season. Yeah. It's not like that. I mean, well, the difference between the Islanders and the Rangers is, the Rangers actually, didn't lose their captain. But they have, actually goal scoring right now, right? But when you look at it matchup wise, and I also think that Braden Point will come back in this series. I truly
That's
believe
going to be huge.
I truly believe that will be a huge boost for Tampa Bay, a little bit of bolt of energy. But you got to look at experience and you got to look at inexperience.
Yeah.
And I think that is, and by the way, I'm not just saying that for this series either. That is also what matters in the Western Conference. And that's why Colorado is going to win that one too. It's because Edmonton's never been. But Edmonton's never been in the playoffs since McDavid went once, with San Jose. I don't count.
At the same time, you could say that Colorado hasn't been in the Western Conference Final in years. They've lost in the second round in 4 straight years. But
Right.
that's similar. It's similar with, we were talking about with Toronto, where they get over that big hump, they could go all the way. Colorado's playing phenomenal hockey right now. Dismantled Nashville. Played really well against the Blues, which I'm honestly glad because that whole Jordan Binnington.
They almost threw that series away.
The whole Jordan Binnington, Nazem Kadri thing and like the stuff
that was ridiculous. That was ridiculous.
Absolutely disgusting. And the fact that he got a hat trick in St. Louis was golden.
It was awesome. It was awesome.
But Cheris, we were talking about the reverse 2019, these entire playoffs. The Rangers are going to be exactly like that. They won their first 2 series. I think they could get swept by Tampa. I think they're playing a team that has so much experience and a team that's, they already played their hardest series. It was against Toronto. They played their hardest series. They're done.
I think when I mean close, I think it's gonna be a lot of tight games. It's gonna be games that really come down.
I can agree with that.
I really think it's gonna be a closer series than more people are anticipating. I
don't think it's gonna be tight games. I think by tight games it's gonna be like 3-1, 4-1. Like Tampa's done this.
Look, anything can happen I know Tampa's. I'm not saying the Rangers are gonna win this series.
When we had our podcast before we went on break, how many times did we say, "Oh, this Tampa team doesn't look the same"? Oh, no, they look the same to me. They look like they know what.
And this team got worse.
Again, I don't have Tampa.
Exactly.
I don't have the Rangers winning the series. I'm not saying that. Like, I think Tampa's going to win the series, but I think it's going to be a lot closer than you guys
understand
are saying.
it. I get what you mean.
It's the playoffs. It's the conference final.
You never know. You never know.
But let's be honest. No one's watching this series. No one cares. We all care about McKinnon versus McDavid. Let's be honest, dude. Like, come on.
But still,
and the NHL is finally marketing it well. Like, they've been showing McKinnon and McDavid highlights for the last 4 days. I'm excited for tonight. It's gonna be a great game. Great game.
I agree.
Yeah, but I think it really depends. The Rangers have to play the same defense that they did against Carolina, having all 5 forwards back because they were getting a lot of sticks in lanes, blocking a lot of shots. They do that. Tampa might have a harder time getting past. And also, that's why I say it's going to come down to Shesterkin. Because if the Rangers don't play that kind of defense, can we get Vezina Igor Shesterkin? For the Rangers,
Shesterkin also kind of had a series.
That's what I was saying. Is like he has to. I mean, he has to step up. But if the Rangers have a defensive breakdown against a really good offensive Tampa Bay Lightning team, as we know, Shesterkin has to be the guy, obviously, to come up with that key save because last night he wasn't really tested that much on outside of the Teravainen
series, dude.
Outside of the Teravainen, but he had a couple of really good, solid saves.
He had a couple of really good saves when New York was already up 4-0 in every away game. I mean, it's whatever it is. And that's another thing. The Rangers could have easily won in 6. They were 2 minutes away from winning.
Yep.
But moving on to the Western Conference.
Well, hold on. Let's all of us give our predictions. I'm going to say Tampa in 6. Again, I really think it's going to be close.
Tampa in 5.
That's what I said. Tampa in 5. I think the Rangers will steal 1 at MSG just because it's MSG with all the fake fans because they're not real fans. I know this. I live here. They're not real. They just are. They're the the Yankees hat people, the Timberlands. Like, I know this stuff, but I think they'll steal 1 at MSG just because of how rowdy that place gets.
Yeah.
And then Tampa's going to be like, okay, that was cute. And then just push them up.
We'll see. Again, anything can happen in the playoffs.
Well, shut up. I'm aware. My team choked again.
Yeah, we know. All right, now let's get into the most anticipated series of this was destined to happen. Thank God Edmonton won and Calgary won. Or not, oh gosh. Colorado. I got the C's mixed up. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but one of them actually tries in the playoffs.
All right. McKinnon versus McDavid, the best player in the league versus the second best player in the league. I think we're all on the same page there.
The
Oh my
disrespect to
God.
Greg McKegg is real, dude. The disrespect to Greg McKegg is real.
Yeah.
On
here's the
D'Angelo
thing.
too.
Now, you guys I think this series,
Maple Leafs legend.
I think this series is not going to be close. Edmonton's not going to be McDavid is remarkable. He's out of his mind. Same with Draisaitl. Can they do that against a well-built Colorado Avalanche team? They're not going to be scoring 5 goals a game against El McCarr, Devontae's, Gerard's hurt, Josh Manson. They're not going to be doing that. Playoffs are about defense, and that 9-6 game, like, come on, that doesn't happen in playoffs. You're not going to do that against
You're
Colorado.
forgetting about Jack Johnson too. Big guy on that end.
That's why I think Colorado, this might be a cakewalk. McDavid's definitely going to do his thing. And also another series where Darcy Kemper's going to really have to step it up, because let's be honest, he gave up a lot of soft goals in the series against St. Louis. So guys, what are your thoughts?
This is my close series. This is my one that I think is closer than the people expect. And the only reason I say that is the sheer and utter emotion that Connor McDavid is putting into this. I have never seen a player want it more, ever. This kid is here to prove, because he has to. For Connor McDavid's legacy, for Connor McDavid to be considered one of the best of all time, he's got to win at least one to be talked about. He has to. And he knows that.
Kind of the same with Ovi.
Right. And that's what the hinder on Ovi was for years, was, well, yeah, he's great. He's scoring blah, blah, blah amount of goals, but he's never won one yet, and that's where McDavid is right now. He's getting there. Obviously, he's still so young. He's 25. So he's still not even scratching his prime yet. Or I don't even know what his prime is, like 200 points a season, probably at this rate. I don't even know.
Yeah.
But when you look at the sheer and utter emotion that he is putting in to this, and the fact that a hurt Draisaitl is putting up 26 points,
it's remarkable.
I know that Colorado will win this series. I know there's so much a well-built team. They're a better playoff-built team. Nobody is going to ever be able to stop Connor McDavid. You can slow him down, but there's no way that you can physically stop him. And I think that is just going to be too much for Colorado at times. And I think that's why tonight, I think Edmonton wins tonight. Due to the fact that I think he's going to catch him by surprise. St. Louis is a quick team, but they're not the Edmonton Oilers quick. They're not Connor McDavid quick. And I think that just sheer speed is going to maybe catch them a little bit by surprise. And I think Edmonton will steal one. Overall, I think Colorado wins in 6. I think they'll take care of it. But I would not count out the Edmonton Oilers at all in this one.
And we also haven't talked about Evander Kane. He's been terrific playing on that.
I was going to mention the fact that off ice, don't even want to get into the amount of sheer disgusting stuff that he's gotten himself into a lot of times, but he has really bet on himself these playoffs, some might say.
I see what you did there.
12 goals, man. Like, that's absolutely unreal. He's at 2 hat tricks, but Sam does have a point. I think that this series is going to be closer than Tampa, New York, just because of the fact that.
What about Mike Smith?
Oh no, here's my thing. What about Darcy Kemper, who didn't play well in that series against St. Louis? Darcy Kemper really hasn't proved himself to me this season, because he was hurt for a decent amount of it, that he's really that number one guy. I thought Grubauer was decent for them a lot. I never thought Grubauer was the issue. This is also the healthiest we've seen these Colorado Avalanche in a long time. That's what's been killer for them in the last few seasons. Like I mentioned it before the playoffs even started on our segment. The only thing getting in Colorado's way was themselves and the injuries, and they've been relatively healthy. But I will point out, Tim, I know that we talked about Draisaitl and McDavid just walking on people. This is going to be their big test, because they're playing a defensive system, or just a defensive group that is so well-rounded and well-sounded that they're there's really not, even if they get the off chance that one of those two is out there against the bottom pair, those are still good guys. You got Bowen Byron out there. You've got Jack Johnson, Jack Johnson, but you've got guys like Manson and McCarr and Eric Johnson. I mean, this team is just so well-rounded, and I don't know. I mean, I think this is going to be the most exciting one because these are two teams that are dying to prove something. McKinnon and Landeskog, they're finally over that hump. They finally got past the second round. They're finally healthy. Their team is finally healthy besides Sam Girard. Besides that, if you're looking at Edmonton, they finally proved, like, look, for McDavid and Draisaitl, this is their moment. No one expected them to get this far, really. I still thought, I mean, they almost lost I thought they were going to lose to the Kings personally. I know that Tim thought that too, but I mean, this is the best that we've seen them. And excuse me, geez. That was my post rant sneeze. Sorry. I still think Colorado wins. I think we're gonna get a Colorado Tampa series, which is gonna be boring to watch if you're not a Colorado. If it's gonna be boring to watch if you're not a Tampa fan, in my opinion, because that's just gonna be boring, in my opinion. But I will say that I think Tim's on the right track. I don't think Edmonton wins this series specifically because of the fact that Mike Smith has to play actual talent that shows up in the playoffs for once. I'm looking at you, Blake Coleman, Tyler Toffoli, and Johnny Gaudreau every year. But I wouldn't be surprised if they make it. I think the series could potentially go 7.
Both series can go 7. Again, it's the playoffs. Like, we don't.
I'll leave this meeting right now. I'll do it. Don't even know me. The Rangers taking Tampa to 7.
Anything can happen. I'm not saying it's gonna go 7. I'm just saying we've seen.
I just want to point out that Cheris has been saying in the Roar Zone Hot Takes chat all series long that whoever won the Carolina Rangers series was going to lose in 3 games, and now all of a sudden, the Rangers could make it interesting. Get out.
Well, I have to keep it more professional here, and be realistic.
Yeah, realistic was you in Hot Takes. They're not going to win. They're not going to make it close.
Look, Jacob.
That's why I say anything can happen. I'll say it right now. It's anything can happen.
Jacob, if the Rangers take it to 7, I will personally come up here and apologize to you that I was wrong and that the Rangers were right. And you were right.
I will fully admit that Tony DeAngelo was a good hockey player.
But if they don't, you have to say that you were wrong.
I said I was wrong about Calgary. I have no problem with that.
Okay, fine. Done deal.
Yeah, but 2 wrongs is just so right in my opinion.
Yeah, I know. I'm a bad journalist. Okay. So my prediction, we talked about Zach Hyman a little bit, because he's also been terrific. But yeah, anything can happen. The way you slow down McDavid and Draisaitl, that's the thing. The Colorado defense, they need to force those guys wide, take them to the boards, and they won't be able to operate. So that's my big key. I'm going to say Colorado in 5. I think McKinnon's going to have one heck of a series. You know what? I think we need to see a little bit more of Mikko Rantanen. I think he's a guy that, he's been good. I think, he has to maybe take his game up just a little bit. And Colorado, but still, Colorado's going to be in good shape. I say Colorado in 5.
I will jump in real quick. And I want to say the matchup that I'm looking forward to the most, and it's obviously people are talking about McKinnon versus McDavid. For me, it's McCarr versus McDavid. I think that is going to be, that is where we're going to see, because it's not just McCarr, it's McCarr's line with Devon Taves, who has just blossomed into one of the best 2-way defensemen. But yet again, McDavid. Okay, you just didn't have to say that. You didn't have to say that. You just didn't.
Sorry.
You didn't, but you wanted to. I get it. Just like the Capitals, doing a great job. Anyways, but again, with McDavid's line, I mean, whether they put Draisaitl on that line, we saw them do that a couple times against the Kings. I doubt they'll do that. I don't think they should. But Zach, like Josh said, Zach Hyman's playing really good right now. Evander Kane is playing really good right now. So it's going to be very interesting to see how those match up. And obviously it's going to come down to goaltending. And that's why I think Kemper. I take Kemper over Smith.
I would take a bag of pucks over Mike Smith. Don't even get me started on that, man.
All right, so
I just like him extremely.
What's your prediction? I'm saying Colorado in 5. What about you?
Colorado in 6.
I'll say Colorado wins 6. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes 7 though. Those teams are they're
I
equal
agree.
in every sense besides until you get to the defending part, and that's the big key right there.
Yep. All right. With that, that's going to do it for the first edition of the Silky Mitts podcast. We'll be back maybe for the Stanley Cup final, depending on how our schedules shape up. We'll definitely do a free agency edition because that's going to be an interesting one. Lots of talent out there with guys like Giroux, Fleury. And with that, signing off, enjoy the Western Conference final, and we will see you next time.
Hey everybody, thank you for tuning into this edition of Penn State Sports Night. We hope you liked that segment.
And we're sure there's other Penn State Sports Night segments that you are going to love as well. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content.
And check us out on social media for updates and behind the scenes clips and pics. Follow us on Twitter at PSSN TV and on Instagram at PSU Sports Night to keep up with all the action.
For all of us here at the Belisari Media Center, we are
Penn State Sports Night.